Hi, I'm Damien Humphreys,
I'm Luke Hindmarsh.
and we're
In Deep Crit.
we are. Hi, and welcome to our new channel, where we talk about everything fantasy and science fiction. Today, we're going to take a look at Dungeons and Dragons and Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, and in particular the character options presented on page 7 and 8 of Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
Starting with customizing your origin. At first level, obviously, you can choose various aspects of your character. In this case, you're going to be able to change some of those aspects to do with the character's race. First off is the ability score increases that come with the race that you select, and you are able to change. For example, if you're a dwarf, your constitution increased by 2. You could change to dexterity, wisdom, charisma, anything you like, really. The next option is
The next option is languages. As presented in the player's handbook, you usually start off speaking common and the language of your ancestors. So if you're a dwarf, dwarf, elvish, if you're an elf, etc., etc. This just allows you to swap one or indeed both of those for any language on a certain list. The list of standard languages, essentially, at your DM's discretion, as are that are available.
and the next option is your proficiencies. Some races and some sub-races grant proficiencies, not all of them, I don't think, but there's a proficiency swap table which hopefully we'll have floating between us or somewhere we'll put it in, won't we?
Yeah.
Which will tell you what you can change. But in essence, just a quick rundown, you can swap a skill for a skill, an armor proficiency for a simple martial weapon or tool proficiency, a simple weapon for a simple weapon or tool proficiency, a martial weapon for a simple or martial weapon or tool proficiency, or a tool proficiency for tool or simple weapon proficiencies. And that's pretty much it, except for one last subheading, I think, before we look at.
So personality, as it says here in Tasha's, that the description of your race might suggest various things about the behaviour and personality of that people's archetypal adventurers. Essentially, you could ignore these suggestions and play your character's personality any way you see fit to see your character's personality, which is nice.
Are you telling me I can get a personality change from you?
I mean, you need one, right?
I was thinking more of an implant rather than a. Yeah. Oh, God. I mean, what do you think about these? We'll look at Custom Lineage because that's another option. But first of all, off on ability score increases, languages, proficiencies, and personality.
Yeah, I think they're all good. Is the short answer. I think anything that adds to diversity and versatility within character creation can attract more people to the hobby, as it's less prescriptive, and you can do more with it. I know there's been some controversy about this, about changing the way races work in D&D, etc. I actually think it's really positive. There are some options that may allow you to min-max your character a little more, but if that's the way you play, that's the way you play. If I'm playing an orc wizard, I'd really like to have that +2 to intelligence instead of to strength, because it will help my character.
It encourages people to be able to do that, doesn't it? Because I don't know about you, but if I was thinking about playing an orc wizard before, I might well have then had to balance. Oh, I'm sacrificing some ability, some utility, combat effectiveness, whatever, for the sake of role playing, which is great. I might be willing to make that choice, but I'm much more willing to go with the interesting character concept that I've come up with if I'm not penalised for going down that route. I mean, I agree with you that it's a positive. 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, isn't it? Really, player agency and character creation. It's choice, and this is adding to that. I can't see how that could be a bad thing.
Exactly. I can't see how adding to choice is a bad thing. If all these rules are optional, if you don't want to run them at your table, don't run them at your table.
Absolutely.
If you want to play them, but your DM doesn't want to run them at the table, that's cool. Either abide by what your DM wants, or have an open and honest discussion, or find somebody that does want to run them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think with I mean, there could be some issues with, like, for example, languages. It's a funny situation. We talked about this where it it identifies common as something you can change. Is that something you would be pleased with in one of your campaigns if you're DMing? Say next time you're DMing for me, when my current character dies, because we are playing Icewind Dale, so survivability might be low. If I suddenly come along and say, "Hey, Damien, I'm going to be a character. I'm going to use the rules to swap out common, so I only speak, I don't know, deep speech and infernal."
To start off with, I may not allow deep speech and infernal on the list that you can change to without very good background reasons. Would I be happy? I'd let you do it, I guess. I would point out how irritating that's going to be from a role-playing perspective after 2 or 3 sessions, because I would make you role-play it. Right? I wouldn't hand-wave it. I'd make you role-play it. So
you would.
I'd probably have you like in a separate room, and then somebody going backwards and forwards and translating to you. That's easy to do online.
This is just your desire to get me out of the room, isn't it?
Pretty much, yes, pretty much. As a player, I'm like, yay! I could play a character that only speaks like Orc and Undercommon. That'd be hilarious. It would be hilarious for a session. It wouldn't. I suppose if everyone after one session.
If everyone was a creature that only spoke, so instead of common, everyone has undercommon, and then you have a campaign that's set in the Underdark. That's not a bad thing.
No, that can work exactly. Yeah, that's a very good point. If you wanted to run an Underdark campaign where everyone is from the Underdark, sure, that would work really well. Everyone speaks Undercommon and another language. And then, perhaps if you do have a character that comes up from the Underdark, if you've got a brand new Drow player character, why would they speak Common? Where have they learnt to speak Common? Because it's not spoken around them.
Yeah, you end up with the Kenku problem to some extent, but anyway. Proficiencies. This seems really balanced to me. Okay, you can't swap a simple or martial weapon or tool proficiency for an armor proficiency. So there's some loss in this table. It's not just one for one swapping things. It's you might have to take something that to some extent is more useful for most characters, but doesn't fit your build, your concept, so it prevents the exploit perhaps of anyone who plays a character who wants to be able to take armor. Just swapping out their simple or martial weapon proficiency or tool proficiency or what have you.
I think that's an important balance to have in there. If I'm rolling up an elven wizard, a high elf wizard, and I swap out my longsword proficiency for heavy armor, that's it's cool for me, but it's kind of.
Yes. Yeah. So it's keeping a lid on that sort of.
Yeah, if you want the heavy armor proficiency, you're going to have to take a dip into a class that gives you that proficiency,
or sacrifice your ability score increases, or feat choices.
Take feat choices to be able to do that. And I think that's a good balance to have on there. I, as a DM, don't want a party of 5 first-level, heavily armoured wizards running around. I'd deal with it, but...
Yes, you would. And we'd be rolling up new characters quite swiftly, I should think. Finally, I think we're probably on the same page with this. It's nice, it's just adding to player agency. Personality, I don't think either of us think this needs to be said, but hey, if you felt you needed permission to roleplay, you've got permission to roleplay. Isn't that really what that paragraph says?
Yeah, essentially. You and I don't tend to roleplay archetypal characters of their background, but some people do, and that's also cool. It's not saying that you can't do that.
Yeah, definitely.
And for new players, it's possibly a really good guide. This is how the typical dwarf acts. This is how the typical gnome acts. But it's also saying you don't have to act that way. Player agency. Be your own person. play your character however you want to play. Did I need to hear it? No. Do some people need to hear it? Probably.
Maybe. I mean, hey, it's one of the great lessons of role-playing. Role-playing games teaches you to explore who you are, and this is perhaps just that permission that maybe some people feel they need. Custom Lineages are giving you the option to, in effect, create either a sort of a homebrew race, or to take an existing race and completely make it what you want it to be. So you are a creature type, you're a humanoid, that's set. You've got to be either small or medium. Your speed is going to be a base walking speed of 30 feet. And then it comes to your ability score increase. One ability score of your choice increases by 2. You gain a feat for which you qualify. A variable trait, you can either take a proficiency in one skill of your choice or dark vision. Most people are going to take dark vision, I should think. And languages. Interestingly, you speak, read and write Common, unlike in the previous section on languages, and one other language that you and your DM agree is appropriate for your character. What do you think about this, Damien? I
really like it. I think, again, you're adding more player agency. You've got essentially, this is variant anything, right? This is so you can play a variant elf, a variant halfling, variant whatever. I don't personally use homebrew races in my games, but I could see this as a really easy way to introduce that. If I had a player who came in and was absolutely adamant on playing a satyr or something, as long as it was a humanoid race, this is a really easy way to make that happen.
I want to be a dog man, so I can now create a creature that doesn't exist elsewhere and give it some flavour without colouring outside the lines of the sort of mechanics of how characters are supposed to work. Abuse. Can this be abused? Do you think? Is this a power gamer's dream? Is that a bad thing? I'm not saying it is.
I guess I don't see why anyone would play variant human again, unless you're desperate to have a +1 to 2 different ability scores instead of a +2 to 1. I can now play a variant human that has dark vision.
Yes, nice.
Which is
+2 to
which is nice for those Gloomstalker builds.
Oh yeah,
and a lot of builds,
not having to hold a torch.
Not having to hold a torch.
Sometimes.
I think. I don't think there's anything too much there to be exploited.
We talked about, and we've had a chat obviously about this. The idea of taking a character who was, for example, half elf, half dwarf. I'm currently playing a half Azimar, half tiefling character. And what about if there was sort of the racial feats? So, for example, elven accuracy. I want that, so I'm going to be part elf, and I want the dwarven feats. And I want to take dwarven. Or, in fact, why do I have to even be split between the two? I'm also a little bit tiefling, so I've got access to that feat. How would you deal with that at your table?
I would. I guess if I was going rules as written, you're technically not any of those races, so you can't take any of them.
Your race is custom lineage, isn't it?
Your race is custom lineage, so you don't qualify for those. Would be the easy way. I may say, well, choose which one is dominant, and that's the racial features. That's the racial feats that you can take. And that's the more dominant side of your nature.
Yeah.
Or I may say, actually, do what you like, because you're spending your ability score increases on those feats. So there's a payoff for it. We could have a whole nother discussion on feats and which ones are worth taking and whether they're worth taking at certain levels, etc.
Yeah. Well, we probably will do it at some point.
I'm sure we will.
And I think that's moves us on to the changing. So, okay, you've created your character. What about these options to change skills? I think that it's very helpful for a player indeed, who's new to either the game or to the campaign world, and that's often the case. We're new to a new campaign world. We don't know what skills are going to be useful. Maybe it seems very likely that we want to be, I don't know, focused on survival, but then there's no real survival mechanic in this campaign, so it's just a sort of a dead skill. Being able to change that's quite nice. Again, it's limited, isn't it?
Yeah, again, it's limited. You can only change a skill proficiency for another skill proficiency that is offered by your class at first level. So it's not like you can choose any skill. It has to be one that your class is able to get anyway. More power to the rogues, because they get the biggest choice. And you can only do it at a level when you get an ability score increase. So for most people, that's 4, 8, 12, and 16.
That's a balance that Tasha's introduces with all of these. There's some like changing your options in later on in the book. We'll deal with that in another video. But this turning point, the fulcrum around the ability score increase, keeps balance, doesn't it? I mean, it stops you from just doing it every level whenever you feel like.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And as a DM, I would not insist, but I would suggest that the skill you're changing to is one that you've attempted to use successfully or not a few times previously. I gave you the example earlier of persuasion to intimidation. You start off taking persuasion, but actually the situations have ended up you've been making more intimidation checks. So actually
I do that.
That makes sense that personality-wise, you're getting better at intimidation and you're no longer as good at persuasion, because the intimidation is getting results.
So you'd keep an in-setting reason for doing... Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me. That brings us on to subclasses and probably a bigger check. This is one I have... I'll let you deal with, but I have a concern about how it could be abused.
So obviously each class involves the choice of a subclass at first, second, or third level, and that represents the area of specialization and offers different features for that subclass as you level up. Tasha's is essentially saying that you can, with DM's approval, and all of these rules are optional and subject to DM caveat, I guess. So with your DM's approval, you could change your subclass when you would normally gain a new subclass feature. And if you decide to make that change, choose another subclass that belongs to your class and replace all of your old subclass features with the features of the new one that are for your new level and lower. And it also suggests that the DM might require you to spend time devoted to this transition, so some training time, a number of days equal to twice your new level in this class, and also an expenditure of money for training. It suggests 100 gold pieces times the new level, and I think that's fair. I can see a possible exploit as some subclasses offer more powerful abilities at lower levels that become obsolete or not as good at higher levels. The one that springs to mind is the War Cleric. Getting the bonus action attack is really good at levels 1 to 3, but then as soon as you get spiritual weapon, you've already got a weaponized bonus action. So I've played a War Cleric and I stopped using that feature as soon as I got spiritual weapon because it's better.
I think that was probably my concern, that you could create a build that was about, oh right, I'm going to be this subclass up until this level, and I'm going to ditch it for the more powerful subclass as we go on. Which is, you can see that with multi-class builds, but this, of course, is a complete change of all those abilities. So, there's limitations anyway, thanks to having to have the DM's involvement, and DMs can police this. It's probably not necessarily a bad thing.
And because you lose all of the abilities of the previous subclass and swap them for the newer one, you're going to be losing something that you probably find useful at some point. I think this is really good, particularly for new characters, for new players who might start off, making a particular subclass choice that sounds really cool. some subclasses are better than others within all classes. There's we all know there's the Battle Master and there's the Purple Dragon Knight.
What? I don't know anything about Purple
Sword
Dragon
Coast
Knight.
Adventurer's Guide. It's it's the poor cousin of the fighting
We don't
class.
talk about that. Yes.
So if you've made that choice and I don't like this subclass. I feel it's hindering my ability to play my character. Cool, you can change it. I probably wouldn't allow you to change more than once unless you reverted back to the original subclass. People might use it as a way to meta game or to min max power game, whichever way you want to put it. But people will always do that with, like you said, with multi-class builds, etc. And cool, if that's your playstyle, that's your playstyle. That's the beauty of 5th edition, is that you can play however you like.
I think also with the training times and the sudden change, it could play very heavily off the role-playing aspect. So, for example, we've talked about the fact that you're running an Icewind Dale campaign at the moment. I've just started off as a warlock, and I'm packed to the Fiend and trying to corrupt the paladin in the party. Not that he's, if he's listening to this, okay. But anyway. So far, it's working. But the fact is, so far, very well so far. But he might decide it might be that they instead corrupt me, and I end up being redeemed to being a warlock of the Celestial. That could be a fascinating character arc to play. I could see real role-playing potential.
Or an eldritch horror rises from the depths, and your fiend runs in terror, and you become packed with the old one. Yeah,
exactly. So it's got. I think there needs to be some consideration by a DM. Why is this change happening? Is there a good reason that's been established through role play? Is certainly the way I think you would do it. Certainly how I'd do it. And
I'd do the same with multi-classing as well. But why are you multi-classing? What's the
to get +2 on this?
Yeah. What's the reason? What's the role-playing reason? What's the in-story development that has led you to to change, to suddenly pick up? You've been a fighter for 3 levels and all of a sudden you're a sorcerer. Okay, what happened?
Yes. Yeah.
What has happened to make that change?
I mean, and this is great. I suppose also this, once you've got those sort of considerations in place with your DM, say you've been playing the same campaign for 2 years, and Tasha's has come out, and you really want to change to one of those new subclasses. This means you don't have to get bored of that character that you've actually invested a lot of time playing, and all you're doing is swapping out what no longer pleases you about that character for something exciting and new. It's better than having to kill the character or
or if there's an Unearthed Arcana that comes out and you're really excited about playtesting a subclass. Give it a go. This makes it easier, and this gives a mechanic for making that easier as well.
Takes the workload off the DM, who might want to have allowed this anyway. It's not like DMs couldn't have made this decision themselves, but now, because you always get one, but this is not rules as written. Now it is potentially optionally,
absolutely.
I think overall we thoroughly approve of this first part of chapter 1. Obviously, we'll look at some of the other options to do with specific classes in another video, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. As I've said, anything that adds to diversity and versatility within the game is a good thing, and these 2 pages cover some really good things. All optional. If you're old school, hardcore, locked in your ways, you don't have to use any of them. If you're open
freedom, choice,
they're
not taken away from you.
They are not at all. They haven't said these are the new options and you must abide by these rules, or Wizards of the Coast will come and take all your books away.
Yes, indeed. They won't do that. They won't do that, will they, Damien? They won't. Don't
they won't. They won't.
All right. Good. Right. Well, thanks very much, and I think we'll leave it there. Maybe there's some examples you could come up with for changes in history or changes in literature or film in the comments about what times when people have made this big change from what would be the equivalent of the change in the subclass.
Sure,
gone from being the.
Let us know what you think about these options, about our opinions of these options, whether we're right or wrong. Let's have a discussion in the comments. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe. That obviously helps us out, and if you hit the bell, then you'll get notified for when our new videos land. We hope to cover much more of this type of thing and the whole genre of fantasy and sci-fi. It's good to have you
not
with
just
us.
D&D. Indeed it is, and welcome along for the ride. We're all in deep crit.
We are all in
signing
deep
out.
crit. Cheerio.